These are the kicker keys. The first one is the 500 watt sub amp. Each one of the keys has a unique feature about it that makes it special. The 501 has de-equalization built into it so that it can look at the signal and correct for bass problems. So like if there's a high pass EQ or no bass at all, anything like that, it can fix for. But as you can see, it's fairly compact. The next key is the 200.4, the highs amp. And what's unique about this is it comes with a microphone and can auto EQ itself, do time alignment equalization with the microphone that is in this box. It's this guy right here. So this allows it to do the tuning all on its own. And as you can see here, very small as well. My plan is to set them like this inside of that back area there. That'll allow me to run my speaker wires to this way, so they might actually sit like this. Speaker wires will go off to the passenger side and the power wire will go off to the driver's side. For this, power-wise, we're going to be just using a fuse distribution and not a power and ground distribution. Mainly, I don't have room for a 4 gauge and all that. We'll just use the smaller wires that these guys are. So I'll be using the T-Spec MANL. Basically, that's just a really nice way of saying it's a 2 fuse holder. And it's a little smaller, and that can sit over here. I can move these things around and figure where it needs to go. So now it's just going to kind of be playing with it to get it to where it makes the most sense. The power is going to come across the back and the signal will come across the front, because this power is going to come this way. You make sure there's enough room to bring the power around that way. This is going to be my amp layout. That'll come out and go up and around like we talked about. And I can put this guy right here, because this is my signal side, so it'll come around and go directly into here, and my signal can come into this. So this makes the most sense, for sure. When screwing into ABS, always pre-drill the holes. Don't just try to screw right into it. And there we go. Everything's screwed down into place. LGDs mounted. Now, it is time to run some wires. I like to break systems into parts that just makes it easier to deal with. The first part is going to be my signal routing, and for that we are not going to be using the green and purple, so I've shortened them and shrink wrapped those off. The only inputs we're going to be using on the amplifier is the white and gray, and they need to come over here to this LGD input, and then my sub amp needs to do the same thing. These of course are long and this is short. We'll cut these to length and get them attached, and just like that, this is the harness. Has the Phoenix end on one end that will plug into the LGD, over into the highs amp, and then down into my sub amp. Next, I'll get these zip tied up into place so they don't rock around. With the input side of things taken care of, now it's time to deal with the output side of things for both the subwoofer output and the speaker output. When you're doing the bi-amp mode, the white and gray are the tweeters and the green and purple are the mid bass. So keep that in mind. Sometimes that can screw with your head when you're up front and you're attaching to these wires up here, which are gray and white. This is also where the power section is for this amplifier, which is going to come along this side of the amp here. The other thing too is that because this is a factory radio, there's no remote turn on. We're going to be using DC offset. Kicker, they call that the fit circuit. Works really well. But the key 200.4 will allow you to use the remote turn on as an output now. And even though this has fit in it also and it will turn on, I like to use my remote turn on out to turn on my sub amp. There's a switch on the side here to do that. And the reason why I like to do that is because I want this amp to turn on first and then it turns this amp on second. And that will just come across and go into the input here. For the speaker wires to go up front, I'll be using speed wire. Speed wire is this cool 9-conductor wire. Inside, it has the same colors that I have over here. So it has white, gray, green, purple, and it also has a blue remote turn on that we won't be using. We'll solder these onto these ends here, and that'll get that all set. The one thing that I will have to do is we need to run 2 speaker wires along with this, So for that, we'll just be doing a twisted pair of white and gray with blacks in them once we figure out how long this has to be. To figure out how long of a wire we're gonna need, we have this purple wire here that we can drop into the car and get a fairly accurate guesstimate of how much wire we need. Join me in the car. I'll attach it here where I know the amplifier is gonna sit, drape it across, try to run it in the general area we're gonna run it, goes up front, and it ends right there in the dash. Put a little twist in the wire so that I know where the end is. And now I know how much speed wire I need to pull off the rack. To attach the speed wire to the amplifier, I'll just be matching up color for color, green to green, green black to green black. I like to use 1/8 inch heat shrink to cover my points, and I'll slide it onto the wire first, and then we'll solder this up. 1 down, 7 more to go. Before I put the heat shrink on, I like to just double check both sides of the wire to make sure that I got them correct. And once I've done that, I can slide my heat shrink up into place. And that's that. Next, I want to protect this part of the wire here that is exposed. I don't need to worry about this so much because this is thick enough rubber that nothing is going to really affect it. Plus, it's got to get through this and get through that. So there's 2 shieldings on it already, but there's nothing on this. So for that, we'll use some flex loom to cover this up. I'm going to go a little bit long on it because some of this might be visible and I just want it to look good. That's another part of it. Alright, slide the shrink wrap up into place to finish it off. I'm going to put a bend in it while it's still hot because I want it to come this direction. I need it to go up behind that piece. I'll just put a temporary zip tie there because I don't think that's going to stay that way because this wire still needs to come along into there. And that's what I'm going to do now is add this wire in. It needs to be this long, but it actually needs to be a little bit longer because we're going to twist it together. So add about 3 feet of length to whatever this is in order so when you twist it, because there's going to be shrinkage naturally, so about 3 feet on this over this distance is probably going to be too much, probably about a foot too much, but I'd rather have a foot too much than a foot less. And with our twisted pair attached, zip tied it in place, finished off this look here, added the braided loom to the end of it. They're going to have it match, and then it goes to tape as it goes down, and then it goes all taped all the way up to the front of the car. Next is going to be this subwoofer output here. I have to measure how far over that piece is going to be and then cut the appropriate length wire for that. Here, let me show you what it looks like. This has to run up to the rear firewall, go across, and follow this speaker wire because it's all flat, and when the seat goes down it's going to sit on top of it, so we have to make sure this is up and out of the way. We covered it all in flex loom. The next thing is the power side of it, and we're going to start with the farthest amp, which is this one, and come this way. To do that, we do need to lengthen this little tiny wire here. It's very small, and we'll use some 12 gauge to do that. Do the same for the ground. Before I do that, I want to see how long I need this. Say about this long will be plenty. A lot of soldering on this install. Never really realized how much soldering you have to do in installing this key 200.4. I'm going to use shrink wrap over this solder point, but I'm going to use the red and black. The black has to be longer because it's got to go out into the side panel. And I need the blue to come over here into the remote turn on. Now, I don't want to put a joint right here this close to that. That's not a good idea, so I'll cut some of this back and we'll move it over here to where this is going to be straight. And then we'll put blue over that. That is going to come up and around like so. I have some blue Tech Flex. I'm going to put around the blue, and I'll do the red and black as well. And then for the kicker amp here, we're going to be using 8 gauge out of this over to the distribution block. Let's see what that looks like when it's complete. There it is. That's the power side. Let's take a closer look. The remote turn on comes along here, goes into the amplifier up underneath this wire. These 2 wires come across here and come into the power distribution block. These are the 2 grounds that are going off to wherever. Don't know yet. We still have 2 pieces of this left to do. One is the part that I always forget, but I've had it sitting on my desk since we started, which is the bass knob. The bass knob I want to run with these wires because it's gonna go up this side of the car. I just wanted to see where it was going to tie in. Thinking I want to do is have it come underneath power wires like so, plug in, and then just use these two zip ties to hold it in place. That'll keep it nice and simple. The other thing I can do is come this way, but I don't really think that's all that necessary. I can get in here and drill a hole so I can zip tie this down into place like that. I like to make sure I have enough so I can unplug it and plug it in. Most of the time when I'm tuning it, I do unplug the bass knob just so I can see the lights that are here on the end of the amplifier. The bass knob wire will sit right in the crack of these two wires. Alright, we have that all set and ready to go. And next is the master power wire. We're gonna do the same exact thing we did with the speed wire for the power wire to find out how much wire we're gonna use. Most of the time we just use a kit, comes with 18 feet of wire. Life would be great. Today we just so happen to be out of 4-gauge kits. So we're gonna do what we call a la carte, meaning off the roll. We need to be a little bit more precise because, I mean, I could take 18 feet off the roll, but if I don't need to, why should I?